This is Kat Klingesmith with Retro Crime. A reoccurring theme of retro crime is that crime isn't as random or as senseless as it seems. There are always reasons, they just aren't always good reasons. Sometimes it's as simple as someone selfish wanted something and innocent people were in the way. Usually, what they want is money, or they want a person, or they want to keep something hidden. And sometimes they simply want to destroy something good because it gives them temporary relief from the emptiness inside. Those are the malevolent sort of criminals. They're selfish and good at avoiding pesky consequences. These are our CEOs, our dictators, cult leaders, serial rapists, serial killers, con artists, and so on. These are the ones who are born without a conscience and don't experience remorse or guilt. They don't feel bad when they hurt people, and they don't feel good when they help people. They don't really feel. Their purpose in life is to not be bored. Then there are all the other criminals. They're just people. Their good and bad traits are all mixed together, just like the rest of us. Sometimes we're patient, sometimes we're impatient. Sometimes we're forgiving, other times we want payback. They're people who have feelings and are capable of love and empathy, but their behavior is antisocial. These types are usually born into generational trauma, meaning abused kids grow up and abuse their kids, who abuse their kids, who abuse their kids, who abuse their kids, and so on down the line. These are the sob stories, like the owner of a brothel who was sold as a child by her mother, or the bank robber who grew up neglected and stole food to survive. When we learn their stories, their behavior becomes understandable, even if it's not excusable. Just like the beautiful blonde sweetheart Goldie Mae Richmond of Brawley County, West Virginia. Goldie first made headlines in 1959 when she shot and killed her father. She was acquitted, and a healthier person would have taken that win and walked away, and not a peep about them since. But not our Goldie Mae Richmond. Her backstory is she was born in rural southeast West Virginia in 1937. She was so West Virginian that her ancestors came to Virginia in the 1600s, settled in the mountains long before it was called West Virginia, and her family's lineage shows the timeline of when West Virginia went from mountaineers to hillbillies to dilapidated shacks with Confederate flags. West Virginia is the only state entirely in Appalachia. The early and abundant Scotch-Irish settlers brought their whiskey-making skills with them. If you need a refresher on the Whiskey Rebellion from 8th grade history class, I will give you the gist. As soon as the United States was born, after they won their war against unfair taxation without representation, they paid off the war's debt by taxing distilled drinks, primarily whiskey. Almost all American whiskey has come from Appalachia then and now, it still does. It was a tax on rural farmers who were already poor. This was Alexander Hamilton's idea. He was a fancy New York City boy. He didn't hang out with the different pig farming clans in the mountains. He didn't know what it was like running out of pennies to pinch. This sounds like unfair taxation without representation, right? Well, right over the border of West Virginia, Pennsylvania farmers fought back. Meanwhile, deeper in the mountains, distilling went underground, which means unregulated. Moonshine production took off. Moonshine is easy to produce. They don't need grain, just anything with a carbohydrate. And unlike whiskey, it doesn't need to age. Oh boy, here's the dark side. With high-proof alcohol and isolation comes alcoholism. Since it's genetic, it gets passed down for generations. With alcoholism comes dysfunctional families, so that gets passed down along with it. That's exactly what Goldie Mae was born into, an alcoholic, dysfunctional family with generations of dysfunction and alcoholism. I was able to go back 4 generations with Goldie to find mental illness and alcoholism. That's only as far as the concrete proof went. Her family story is wild. Goldie's great-grandfather, without any warning or explanation, blew his brains out. His daughter was her grandmother, Minnie. That same week, poor Minnie was shot and killed by her estranged husband. His name was Overton Richmond. He was an adulterer, an alcoholic, and an absentee father. Minnie mostly lived as a single mother, raising 16 children. On the occasions Overton returned, it was like 17 children. When Minnie's father died of suicide, Minnie couldn't take any more crap. She threw Overton out. Instead of a peaceful retreat, he stood in the woods for a long while, saying he was going to kill his son Virgil. No reason given. He didn't even attempt anything, he just stood there. The night before he murdered his wife, he was seen outside their home being impressively hillbilly by drinking and dancing alone in the street. He decided that he was now going to kill their youngest son, Howard. Again, he didn't make any attempt. The following day, Overton finally acted. He chased Minnie and shot her from behind in front of poor Howard. The whole town ran around looking for Overton for days. While Minnie's funeral service was happening, the police accidentally found him. They were looking for some truant kids, and in their search came across a shack belonging to Overton and Minnie's son, the so ironically named Golden Richmond. Instead of finding the kids, they found Overton dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I told my husband Jason about this. I told him about the entire episode. After patiently listening for 20 minutes or so, he asked, "But did they find the truant kids?" That will have to be its own episode. Golden was Goldie's dad. Like Overton, he was also an alcoholic. In his 30s, he rented a room from the Earls, and Mrs. Earl secretly cheated on her husband with him and named the baby after its secret father. That's the origin story of Goldie Mae Richmond. Mr. Earl found out Goldie wasn't his when she was 7 years old and divorced her mom. When her mom died 3 years later, Goldie was passed among relatives. She escaped in her teens by marrying an older man, also an alcoholic, and he was out on parole for armed robbery. Despite not having the parental support she needed growing up, she was close friends with her cousins and neighbors. She needed them when her husband was killed in a bar fight because she had a 3-month-old baby at home named Richard. Then Golden, her biological father, who had been pretty absent, suddenly showed up in her life. It was odd, but she allowed him to move in to help her. I think it's likely he needed a place to live, but what desperate sleep-deprived mother is going to turn down free help? Like Goldie's husband, Golden had been incarcerated for stealing. He and 2 men stole groceries from an elementary school. Classy, right? He was also arrested for moonshine, which makes sense because he was an alcoholic in a dry county. The community's opinion about him is that when he was sober, he was fantastic, just a great person. When he was drunk, he was a monster. Like he'd threatened to kill his family, just like his father had. He was the type of alcoholic who had a personality switch when he drank. When sober, the Dr. Jekyll Golden, he was a wonderful grandfather. The drunk Mr. Hyde Golden, he was not so much. He was abusive to the point that there were bullet holes in Richard's toy train. One spring day in 1959, he wasn't sober and was being abusive. While babysitting Goldie's now 3-year-old son Richard, Goldie stormed in and killed him. 2 hours after the shooting, she was found drinking at a bar. In order to get around liquor laws, drinking could be in a club, and people over 21 could join as members of these clubs. Goldie was 21 at the time. She was arrested and testified in court that right before the shooting, she was at her cousin Roy's house next door watching TV. Roy went over to check on Richard and reported back that Golden was hitting him. Goldie responded with, "I'll kill him," then stomped out and went to her house. Roy went with her, grabbed Richard, and took him outside. When confronted, Golden struck Goldie across the face with a jar, and she still had the scar on her cheek at her trial. Goldie swore that she only meant to scare him with the gun, but ended up accidentally shooting him. Both she and her cousin Roy claimed that Golden was drunk, of course, and had just threatened to kill Goldie 3 to 4 hours prior to the murder. Goldie's memory of the events was that they were struggling over possession of the gun when it went off. Ballistics disagreed and said that it was more likely she executed him while he was sitting. But this is rural West Virginia in 1960. Physics weren't proof, they were still considered heresy. Her attorney had witnesses confirm that Golden would get drunk, hit them, and threaten violence. The defense attorney also hinted throughout the trial that Golden had done worse things, and all would be revealed in time. The press found this tantalizing. The revelation ended up being that one night while Goldie was getting ready for bed, Golden opened the door, pushed a drunk man in, then closed the door and left. In my opinion, they were lucky she didn't shoot both of them right then. Despite the discrepancies in Goldie's account and her acknowledgement of pulling the trigger, she and her defense attorney perceived her as the true victim, and the jury agreed. She was acquitted. A few days later, she reappeared in court, but this time as a witness in another case. Several months prior, there had been a bar shooting. Her account of it is that she walked in as a duel was going on, took the gun from a man named Rush Rourke, then gave it to her friend Rush's mom, Hazel Rourke. At the time all of this was happening, all of Goldie's uncles were in the Moundsville prison together. The Moundsville prison in West Virginia, it's notoriously haunted. It's literally across the street from a sacred Indian burial ground, hence the name Moundsville. I've been there. I won't even go in. I find it terrifying. Golden's brother Homer, he was also an alcoholic, of course, and a bit nutty, so he was transferred to the West Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which I've also been to, and I also won't go in because it is extremely haunted. Homer escaped, and after being caught, the judge decided that he could be someone else's problem and released him into Goldie's care. 7 months later, Goldie was arrested again for murder, along with her cousin Roy and her boyfriend, Rush Rourke, the man from the duel whose gun she had given to his mother. Goldie was a tiny blonde, maybe 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, so it looked all the more striking when she showed up to court in maternity clothes. The crime this time was this: in the same house, in the same room, with the same gun she had shot her father with 10 months prior, she shot and killed his brother, her Uncle Homer. The story was that Uncle Homer was drunk and came at her with the knife, so she shot him in self defense. This is plausible. Like the rest of the Richmond men, he was mean when he drank and had a criminal past which included violent offenses. Golden and Homer both had had peace warrants filed against them, which are like restraining orders. Unlike last time, Goldie's testimony didn't need to defy the laws of physics. There was reasonable doubt, and it looked like self-defense. I think it was self-defense. It didn't take long for the jury to disagree with me and decide that she was guilty. I think they decided she was guilty as soon as she walked into the courtroom with a big belly and no wedding band. This was a county with possibly more churches than people. Even if there had been any hope of Goldie being acquitted, Rush Rourke fought his way out of hot water by testifying against her. Rush said that Goldie shot Homer, and as soon as she did, he took the gun from her and dismantled it. What a hero! Roy helped transport the body, and they buried him in a shallow grave. Uncle Homer was found because his feet were poking out of the ground. Rush had been captured in Cleveland and brought back. He assured them that he wasn't running away from authorities, just looking for work. Goldie was sent to Pence Springs Women's Prison, where she gave birth to a baby girl and made it clear that her children were not allowed to be adopted, even though she would be locked up for 5 to 18 years. It looked like they were now going to repeat the same instability that Goldie had endured growing up. While Goldie was in prison, her significant other, Rush, he was up to no good. His criminal record went back far, and almost all the charges were alcohol-related: possessing moonshine, driving drunk, public intoxication. He had been a Marine and even graduated from the Officers Leadership School. During that time, he was arrested because he was drunk and went with his friends to the house of a 17-year-old girl. One of his friends had dated her. His friend wanted to talk to the girl. She wouldn't oblige, so they tried to break in, and one of them shot and killed her 15-year-old brother. Rush's father was also a serviceman and, of course, an alcoholic. He died from cirrhosis of the liver. So Rush, his dysfunction was also inherited. In 1962, while Goldie was in prison, Rush was an accessory in yet another murder. He and a drinking buddy were involved in a bar fight and resolved it by taking the guy who had offended them up to the Grand View overlook in Pittsburgh and threw him over. That same year, Goldie and her prison friends got an extra year added to their sentences for trying to escape with a Cocker Spaniel. The women were found sitting on a log in the woods, still on prison property. Their story was that they had gotten lost in work detail. They were lucky to get caught because they were going in the wrong direction. Had they kept going, they would have kept wandering through the mountains to their deaths. Had they gone the other way, they could have caught the train. Cocker Spaniels are a wonderful breed and great to bring hunting, but they are terrible guide dogs. After serving 7 years, Goldie was released. She and Rush married in Virginia and lived out the rest of their days in Cleveland. Goldie Mae Rourke died at 77. Goldie was sweet, well-mannered, pretty young, and certainly loved her son. Her father was an abusive and cruel drunk, and his brother was as well. She didn't deserve to be locked up for what was, in my opinion, what was clearly self-defense. She especially didn't deserve the bias against her for being an unwed mother. True as that may be, Goldie wasn't an innocent victim. When she killed her dad, she had left her defenseless toddler with a notoriously cruel drunk man who it was in the middle of an abusive episode. Goldie was negligent, knowingly put her toddler in danger, and subsequently, I believe that what she was guilty for was child abuse and should have been arrested for that. Was Goldie a victim or a villain in this story? She was like most criminals. Both. She had a bad life that led her to doing bad things. So, she loved her son, no doubt. So, why did it happen that she left him with her father? Goldie was blinded by something so important to her that it justified leaving her 3-year-old alone with a monster, knowing what monsters do. She said it was to watch TV with her cousin next door. I'm going to smack this excuse right down because that's just dumb. She didn't put her child's life in jeopardy to watch TV. There are pretty much 2 reasons why people who love us throw us under the bus. The first is addiction. I don't think Goldie was hiding an addiction. The second is hormones. I think her cousin's buddy Rush Rourke was there and Goldie wanted some grown-up time with him. I think Goldie snapped and killed her dad because his abuse was interfering with her love life. She was infatuated with Rush. He was in a duel and gave her the gun, and she then gave it to his mom. I wouldn't put my prince on a dirty gun even if my own child handed it to me. That's a stupefying amount of devotion. So Goldie, clouded by strong emotions for a guy, probably told herself that Richard would be fine with her dad for a little while. She got pregnant soon after this. In no world could Rush have been treating her well at this time. Their relationship was built on dysfunction. Rush testified against her instead of simply agreeing that it was self-defense. Rush didn't have to say anything. It was his right to remain silent. Instead, he made a deal so that he only had to serve a year with time served. That meant separating their family, locking up his common-law wife, and taking kids away from their mother, which included a nursing newborn baby. Then something odd happened. Rush moved to Cleveland and waited for her all 7 years that she was in prison. They married as soon as she was released in 1967. They got their kids back and settled in Cleveland. Rush got a job at a mill and kept it. Goldie's son and their daughter loved their father, and they adored their mother. There were no more arrests for drunkenness, no more shooting people. There was no more anything naughty. The next time they made the papers, it was their obituaries. It was clear that the children loved and missed their parents, and Rush adored his grandchildren. Their heritage of behavioral sickness lost its symptoms. How on earth could this happen? People who have only known dysfunction can't suddenly change because they don't know what to change into. They need examples, they need to find the tools to heal, and then they need to learn how to use those tools. Alcoholism had been fueling the abuse for generations. So, my theory is that someone must have found a cure for it. I think Rush Rourke found sobriety. I think that he moved 300 miles away from the bad influences in his life, and they moved to the nearest big city, to Akron, Ohio, where Alcoholics Anonymous started. By then, the 12-step program was becoming popular. I think Rush had a spiritual awakening, and due to the anonymity of the program, we'll never know. Goldie, she was the malleable one, so when he got better, she got better. Their son went by a different first name after they moved. He considered Rush his dad. A heritage of bad fathers stopped. They were two people with criminal behavior, an inheritance of alcoholism and dysfunction. But instead of winding up in prison's potter's fields, their tombstones stay in loving memory. And that's what they deserve to be remembered as. That's what they've earned.